Hello, and welcome back to another live stream of the DD Geopolitics show. I think DD today stands for Doom and More Doom as we get together for our fifth episode on the morning, I guess, of the fall of Syria. Quite a somber day on most of the interwaves, but I want to get both of yours, I guess, your vibe check because you're both back after 2 or 3 week hiatus, and then I can at least get some SMO date updates out of the way before we unleash our rants about Syria.
Well, I would like to start with Syria because our maps isn't ready yet. So let's start with the chaos in ex-Syria Arab Republic. You know, there is a news that Assad just arrived in Moscow. Great, huge news. It will be a great addition to Yanukovych family in Rostov. I just see pictures how they'll hang each other and start celebration of a new year.
This is just part of the strategic retreat, right, Mikhail?
Well, yeah, like strategic retreat from Kharkiv, from Kherson, from Kiev. Great
No
move.
problem.
Well,
DD, doom and despair.
maybe they'll give Assad Western Ukraine.
Please no.
Well, let's talk
Please.
about what happened. I mean, it all happened so fast. I think it happened in a week, right? It was a week. We had
6 days.
Yeah, we
6
had
days.
work on Monday, and by today it was gone. But I do want to talk about what we're kind of dealing with here. But I also want to let you know that you, Misha, are in really, really good company. Both you and Mr. Al-Jilani are wanted by the State Department for the same amount of money. So maybe the two of you can turn each other in.
Well, you know that it's not working since Giuliani is in Al-Umayyad Mosque right now. So the whole world sees where he is. He travels without any obstacles, and he claims himself a new leader of a progressive jihadist Syria.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. Maybe we can get a rehabilitation program in place for you, because we're gonna talk about this Al-Jilani guy. First of all, let's talk about the extreme NATO makeover. Well, extremist makeover, NATO edition. We can't disregard the uncanny resemblance between Zelensky 1 and Zelensky 2, Electric Boogaloo, or Jihadi Boogaloo, if you will. So,
well, you know that I was kind of fan of this whole jihadi moves and was subscribed to all the propaganda back in 2020, 2021, because I like to write about how they think in order to fight them. And I saw how Giuliani changed before Zelensky. So Giuliani was the first one who started wearing that kind of outfit back in 2021. Not Zelensky. Zelensky just some Jewish imposter.
On your post from 2021, I was doing research on Giuliani, and I was like, where did this guy come from? And I stumbled upon a post on the Telegram, and I was like, well, here's Mikhail writing about him back 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
that's about the time when the United States started whitewashing him. So let's look at this a little bit. This is all from 2021, 2022, and you really have to love it. I love why is it so difficult to get off a terrorist list? Like, what do I gotta do around here to get off this terrorist list? But it's about around this time that
You know, I want to add some piece. The Washington Institute is a think tank behind every thought about washing out, cleaning name of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. I read a book recently. The book was published this year. It's about political jihadism by Aaron Zelen. So he is, as a researcher from Washington Institute, he writes down that, wow, we should see Hayat Tahrir al-Sham not as a part of Al-Qaeda, because it exists for much more longer time as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham than Jabhat al-Nusra. So we have to think how we can work with that. You see, Washington Institute is the main think tank who is behind the very idea of cleansing Muhammad al-Julani's name and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham's brand.
Well, then we must have gotten a direct pipeline from that think tank right into our public broadcasting system, which is this PBS Frontline documentary, The Real Rehabilitation. You guys can watch it. It's still up and it's still free, called The Jihadists. So this sort of PR campaign, United States whitewashing, started a while ago. But I also want to touch on the fact that he was in American prison for a period of time. So the American authorities have had contact with them for almost 2 decades.
Well, as well with Osama bin Laden
Correct.
or Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. They all know that guys very well. It's like their doggies.
So let's get John's take on what are DEI terrorists. So let's look at some of this week's headlines. Syrian rebels appeal to minorities in the seized areas. We're getting to know our HTS. I went to university with the rebel leader. I wonder if he has really turned his back on jihad. Maybe we should catch up and go to brunch. Like, this is the most, like, why did we go through 14 months of dehumanization of everybody in the Middle East to now getting to the point where we're overly humanizing this maniac, it looks like?
Well, I just want to see all of the people who claimed that they were seeking refuge from Assad in the West go back to Syria now and see how comfortable they feel, all of these PMC liberals. So yeah, if you believe the headlines, you definitely go and see how it works out. We know how this is going to devolve, of course, into little fiefdoms of Sunni radicals. That's just the nature of who these people are, fundamentally, right? And so we do see quite an effort over the past couple of days to rehabilitate individuals and this movement as a whole. And I want to get Mikhail's take, because he's been, closer on the ground here.
Mm-hmm.
I described it as a woke jihad, but I think that it's woke from
woke jihad.
woke jihad.
Yeah, the DEI.
That's LGBT jihad.
HTS's minority outreach program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
So to what extent, the media has portrayed these people as being more tolerant? Of course, a couple of the leaders are clearly trying to play into this narrative, talking about how we're going to have peace, don't target minorities. But what should people living in Syria really expect? Does this narrative that the West is pushing reflect the reality on the ground at all, with who HTS is and Jelani and so on?
Well, right now we should expect more and more chaos and havoc. You see how a lot of robbery, banditism, and a lot of chaos envelop in Syria. Because right now there is no power at all, no public administration. There is just a vacuum. Nobody takes responsibility. Yeah, Jelani is in Damascus. He is like a head of transition state or something like that. But you should understand that it's not only about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It's Syrian National Army. It's Operation Damascus Room. It's Jaish Surya Hurra, Army of Free Syria. It's from a 10th state. It's a lot of other militant groups who has emerged and went to their assault on Syrian government and Syrian state. And right now we understand that it will take a lot of time to get to the point when all these factions will find some kind of agreement from some kind of transition government or political process. And even after that, it will take about 2 weeks to make the streets more calm. right now there is a huge problem. And I'll tell you one thing: it's not good or pleasant take, but you should understand the freezer always beats a TV. Syrian propaganda claims that there is a lot of jihadis, that everybody just cuts their heads and so on. See what's happening in Aleppo. There is Hayat Tahrir Sham, there is electricity full day. During Assad time, 2 weeks ago, it was only for 4 hours per day. Right now, full city has electricity, full city has bread, full city has water. They even have Turkish cell numbers right now. Jihadis came and brought civilizations with them. We know cost of this civilization, but we are clever people. And we are talking about poor Syrians who right now are buying image of progressive jihadi movement. And that's why how these progressive jihadists bought all Syrian state. We know the consequences. We saw a video from Arif Damascus where some kind or some boy from Assad family was hanged. It's how real jihadism looks like. And people will see that. But they see another picture as well, that their state failed, that their leader just fled to Moscow, to other state, doesn't matter. That army did not stand up, and the jihadists bring electricity and goods. And that's the problem. It's how West, using its soft power through jihadism, changes the very nature of jihadism. And people will see it as a way to accept new jihadist order, because the freezers always beats TV.
Sarah, you're muted.
Exactly, and that's so important, the hearts and minds part of it. That's what will happen is the sanctions will magically lift and pallets of goods and money will flow right in, and everybody will say, they've done it, the new government has done it. But there's been hearts and minds campaigns going on all around Syria for different interests at the same time. Before we get to what Israel's up to today in Syria, because I want to get into a deep discussion about that, Mikhail, give us an update about what Israel is up to in Lebanon. There's a ceasefire in place, but apparently that doesn't apply to Israel. And I mean that not sarcastically at all. I don't think that the ceasefire applies to Israel. We haven't seen too much on the return fire unless the Israelis were injured inside the territory of Lebanon. I haven't seen too many projectiles going into the territory of Israel. Do either of you guys have an update on the situation in southern Lebanon, which is quite precarious now as the Lebanese armed forces try to take over from Hezbollah?
Well, talking about Lebanon, the situation there is quite stable right now. Yeah, there is some breaking of ceasefire, but there is no intensity of such kind of breaches. We are talking right now about Israel expanding to the east. Netanyahu said that all agreement. Oh, as a map, please, with Dara and Tassueda. I am calling for. No, that's all Syria. Apparently, our map guy doesn't know at all what he is clicking. Not this one. Please return again. Another one. It's Aleppo. You know Aleppo. Yeah, you got it right. So a little magic happened. Right now, we should understand that it's the very take I told you guys last time we made our show together. Last time I told you that Israel will move eastwards from Golan Heights. They made it. Israeli tanks just entered Syria this night. They started this operation to take all demilitarized zone. They took all outposts from United Nations. And in the same moment, Abu Muhammad al-Julani claimed that we want all territory of Syria restored. We don't recognize superiority of Israel on Golan Heights. We should return it. And after that, Israel started bombing Suwaida and Dera.
Yes.
After that, Israel started to destroy everything. And Netanyahu claims that there is a threat from a new transition government, from this terrorist, and we as army of defense unit of Israel, we should defend our interests. So all agreement of 1974 don't matter at all. We should move eastwards. And that's the take I was talking about for months. Israel right now has a focus on Syria. They destroyed all air defense systems. They are now destroying all armor depots. And they're claiming that they need new buffer zone. And since they are in Syria right now, the focus moves from Lebanon to Syria. Palestine stands. Well, we talk that Palestine right now is like a zombie land for new IDF forces. That they train there, they learn how to kill Palestinian forces and so on, training ground. But talking about Syria, it's about expanding territory of Israel using the very nature of failed state as Syria right now looks like.
Correct. And if you don't believe in Misha's psychic ability, here's that post from 2021 about HTS and Jolani, and we'll link it below. But you touched on the expansion plan into Syria. We always talk about the Yinon plan and the Greater Israel plan, but while I was researching that buffer zone, I ran into this article from The Intercept in 2018, I believe, or 2017. They literally have been planning this buffer zone in phases and with a end of safe zone goal. So this is kind of the perfect storm. And then today, while we were prepping for the show, Israel commenced bombing the airport. They've also taken over strategic elevations. Mount Hermon, I think they took over today, and just continuously going forward. They've bombed all of the ammo depots and the air defense systems, leaving these rebels without a cause, and I guess without any defenses.
Well, I think the article that you shared was really important. Because we've been hearing this narrative from these people who ostensibly support Palestine, but have at the same time been cheering the destruction of the Assad regime, claim that, well, Israel's only doing this now because Syria is so strong, which on its face is just ridiculous, because you're not able to move forward in the sovereign territory of a powerful country, or bomb to smithereens a country capable of responding in any significant way. But the articles that you shared are important because they show not only is Israel opportunistically taking advantage of the situation, but that they have been actively aiding the development of these rebel groups to destabilize Syria for this exact purpose.
Exactly.
So I just want to make that very clear to everyone.
Yeah, I'm pointing out that sort of subtitle because we were talking about hearts and minds. That's why I included this, is that fighters near the Golan Heights in Syria received cash and humanitarian help. So that humanitarian help was distributed to the people in the Golan Heights as a hearts and minds campaign. But yes, go on, John, please.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was going to say, is that Israel's been opportunistically not engaged only in the last few days, but in the last several years to try to create this outcome alongside the United States. And we'll see the fruits. We'll see the poisonous fruits of this. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And then beyond that, we talked about it just very briefly, but the degree to which Hezbollah is isolated now and really kind of on their own. The defanging of the axis of resistance seems like it's in full swing, and it's very interesting to see the mental gymnastics that people are doing in order to say that, well, actually, this is the best for the Ummah and the Muslim world and the Arab world. So very, very interesting times, and this is what you get.
Well, I want Mikhail's take on that. The Muslim Ummah from the Caucasus and Central Asia. What are they like? And why are they over in Syria? We're seeing a ton of Uzbeks, Chechens, Dagestanis, Uyghurs. The Uyghurs arrived in Damascus today on Turkish MRAP. So what are these guys like and what are they about? And will they be leaving once the Syrian state is set up, or will they be staying in the Islamic Caliphate of Idlib?
The problem with this group is that nobody understands why these groups are there. These people, Uzbeks, Tajiks, Uyghurs, every other, they respect language over power. They see an opportunity in a places of chaos to get social lift for them, an opportunity to be great commanders, to be some kind of first people and tops in your reality. Look, for example, at Farouk Shami. Farouk Shami is, well, some kind of Tajiki Uzbeki blogger who is behind Russian language propaganda in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. I know him as a blogger since 2019, and I saw how he raised, because he was the only one speaking on Russian language on behalf of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. And he became a prominent figure. He became famous among poor Uzbeks and Tajiks who see him as a man who made himself popular, and who claims that they're so heroic, that they're heroes of a new age, who became so powerful and even can conquer Aleppo and other countries. And even in our country, Uzbeki and Tajiki diaspora people, they start sending donations to Uzbeki fighters of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in order to support their jihad. It's not clever people. We are talking about pure, stupid, non-educated masses, but there is a lot of them. And everybody sees a cult of power as an opportunity to get social lift. And it's a unique and strong weapon that will inspire a lot of stupid people all over Central Asia, Caucasus, that you just cannot be, you cannot go to, I don't know, to the mosque. You can't go to the work. You even can have a job, but you can be a fighter, and you'll become powerful, famous, and you'll have all the resources. It's a huge image. It's a language of these progressive jihadists when they taught everybody, you can be stupid, but you have all the respect you want. Just raise a weapon and fight.
Mm-hmm.
If you are successful, you can become one of us. And the problem is that this jihadi project in Syria right now establishes a new formula of success for these ethnical groups. And we know that Central Asia suffers from corruption, suffers from NGOs from America and Britain, suffers from all new Turkish project, for example, Great Turan and so on. And these stupid people with poor mind, they believe that they should not be progressive people in progressive, I mean, normal progressive way, education, healthcare, and so on. They can just raise a weapon, fight, and get everything they want. And we return to a tribal state of our society when a bigger stick in your hand decides who has more rules.
Well, it's a corridor of woke jihad that is now at the doorsteps of not only Russia, but China as well. You mentioned the Uyghurs. But I wanted to ask you about like what the fundamental failure was here, because we're hearing a lot of different points of analysis. Some people are saying, well, it was the death of President Raisi or Iran's failure to respond strongly to multiple provocations and assassinations of political leaders of the Axis of Resistance that helped enable and empower what we're seeing in Syria now. Of course, there's more analysis that it was really kind of in those final days when the fateful decisions were made that ended up in the destruction of the Syrian government as a whole. And I'm interested to get your take about what has the die been cast for months in Syria now, and people have just not been noticing it? Or were the decisions that were made in these last couple of weeks really the significant thing that guaranteed the destruction of Syria?
Well, let me speak from the deep of my heart. When we are talking about Assad regime, we should understand that when the hugest band of bandits is called Fourth Armored Division, and it's ruled and commanded by president's brother, and it's like just a hugest gang in all the country. About what future we can talk? The society, the system which stands on such people is doomed. And we saw during these 11 days, that when Iran, Hezbollah, Russia just stood back from this war, that Assad army could not do a thing. That without its allies, Assad is useless and nobody wants to fight for him. And that's the reality, that people were tired. And maybe when we decided to help Assad regime in 2015, we needed to create a new elite. We needed to create new rulers of the country, needed to create new managers, top managers of the country, like crisis managers, who were able to change the country from the inside. But we didn't do it. And that's the problem. So it was poor corrupted Assad with his clan who was behind all country's problems.
So the Russian presence in Syria, we know that the DEI jihad has reached Latakia and Tartus, but they also have given guarantees of safety to Russian embassies and bases. What are your thoughts, Mikhail, on what could possibly happen? Do you think that Russia will continue to occupy those bases, or what do you think?
Well, I have a little hope that we last in Syria. Right now, I'm 95% sure that our military presence in big Middle East has ended. You see, the problem is that in this morning, we had a huge opportunity to conduct new Crimea Spring. When there was a huge vacuum of power, there was lack of government institutions.
Mm-hmm.
We could grab governors of Latakia and Tartus, make them write some letter to Russian command that please protect minority, then send a little bit of our troops to main roads to just show our presence, and then declare like state of emergency or de-escalation zone or something like that, when Russia and its forces will guarantee the safety of a local minority. We had a huge chance to show that we can be effective. And if we do that, we will get all the access. But all around the world, every world waited for what Russia will move, what will be Russians' move. Russian military did nothing. They were just sitting on bases and waited for orders from Moscow. I wrote in our channel in Rybar that the problem is that all our huge and legendary moves, like war in Georgia in 2008, like assault on Pristina airport and taking it, it was not because of a system, but because of initiative people. And today it was a time for initiative move, not from the system, but from the people who saw an opportunity on the land. But the problem is that our commanders, they lack opportunity. After all, it's our Russian commanders who were sent to Syria after conducting unsuccessful operations in special military operations zone. So we're talking about poor generals with no initiative who were sitting and waiting for orders. Right now, I know that a lot of our troops prepared to leave Khmimim base because we don't need such amount of outposts and so on. About our military presence, I'm not sure that we will last for long because it will take some political initiative from our side. I don't see an opportunity for it right now. Even Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has declared previously that all foreign military presence has to be ended in Syria. And Russians and Russian bases will be first foreign bases which they will get rid of, because it was Russian airplanes who fought these terrorists for 9 years. So they see us as an enemy. And right now, Khmimim is surrounded, Tartus is surrounded. A lot of our forces just stuck in Al-Hasaki province and in Deir ez-Zor in Hatla with Syrian Democratic Forces. 300 of our troops stuck in a gas oil field in near Tadmor, Palmyra, and it just surrounded. So we are just like tight-headed. That's the problem.
Well, what about the Turks? So then today the Turks come down south and they start a skirmish with the Kurds. So now there's a fight or some sort of armed battle taking place in the north somewhere. We know the Turks have some sort of irredentist aspirations in that territory, and the Kurds want Kurdistan. What goes on in this area?
Well, let's see the map of whole Syria. I will try to show you the main idea. The problem is, as I told you, that a lot of gangs right now have a different control of situation. We are talking about pro-American groups, just some rebels, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and of course we are talking about pro-Turkish group who started to defense on Manbij and took it from Syrian Democratic Forces today. So the goal of Turks is establishing safe zone south of its border. Right now, they have two envelopes, one in Al-Maskana and Al-Kamishli, and the second one in Kobani, Ain al-Arab. So I suppose Turkish factions will move eventually and start to push Kurdish forces to the south because they see them as an enemy. Right now, in the same moment in their resolve, there are clashes between Kurdish forces and pro-American factions. And also there is a huge threat from ISIS militant groups because from yesterday, all rebels, militants start just opening all prisons with a lot of ISIS commanders. It will be only 1 week after these commanders will make to their own personnel and start to take arms and take power. So the civil war in Syria is only beginning right now. So I see a future of Syria, near future, as a dark one, because I see a lot of bloodshed in central Syria, in coastal region, and of course in the east, where a lot of Kurdish forces are situated, and Kurdish forces will be against Turks.
Well, I wanted to mention Assad. This is the other personal story that people have been keeping track of over the last 24 hours. People were wondering if Assad would make it out of Syria. We were tracking his what was supposed to be his plane last night. Some speculated that it may have gone down, but Assad is now alive and in Russia. He's been granted asylum. What is the future for Assad? I mean, so for those people who still have their Assad must go memes, don't delete those quite yet. I don't know. No, maybe you should. Maybe there's not a future, a real political future for Assad. But he has now been given asylum in Russia. Does he have any future role? We were joking, of course, about Assad being the governor of Crimea. But does he factor into how things will develop moving forward, anyways, with the areas that are still controlled by Shia majorities in Syria?
I hope our government and our diplomats just sell Assad as an asset for our bases. It will be a huge end I hope, really. I don't want Assad be here. Why we need him? For what?
Just so I can interview him, then you can do whatever you want with him.
We got to interview him first. That's right.
And what? What should we ask you? Oh, how it was? What can you tell us about your Aston Martin and Ferrari cars in your garage?
That's what we ask every session.
Yeah. Why it was red color? Because of Syrian flag? Or why? Please tell us. It's so interesting and important for us.
Well, I think Sarah wanted to ask him about. Sarah wanted to ask him about her aspirations to become an optometrist or an eye doctor, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have that.
Yeah, eye doctor who didn't in his own country.
Well, we know that. All right. So Assad's in Russia. Thankfully, I'm happy. Syria has descended into chaos. Not happy. What happens next? And I kind of want to do like a little bit of around the way, because this is a huge, we were talking about it all week long, is sort of like, I don't think that people understand what happens if Assad falls, how this ripples throughout the world. Turkey's aspirations do not stop in northern Syria, and their firepower is quite deep, I would say. They have quite a deep bench of fighters and firepower. What is this bode? How does this bode for places like Armenia and Azerbaijan, where Israel is already starting to poke at Armenia and say this mosque inside of Yerevan, the Armenian capital, doesn't belong to Iran, that belongs to the Azerbaijanis, and it's becoming an issue. And they also Israel just issued a travel warning, which we talked about on Friday when we were with Nina. If you guys want to check out that episode on Georgia and Romania as well. Israel immediately issued a travel warning and said chances of terrorist attacks in Armenia, of all places, which is ironic because they are the ones who control the terrorists in that region anyway. So both of you, what do you think that their territorial aspirations are in the Caucasus, and how this can affect Armenia and Azerbaijan?
As I told you, when we are talking about Caucasus and all other countries, it doesn't matter when we talk about Caucasus or Central Asia. We are talking about some mobs and muscle power for future wars. And we know that Turkey building their Great Turan project. It's like a Mi-6 Britain project for conducting soft power policies in Central Asia, in Caucasus, as well in territory of Russia. And they use stupid people like that, like this Shishani terrorist, like Uzbeki terrorist, as just a muscle power to change the situation. Right now, Azerbaijan tells constantly that they need to reintegrate Armenian territory. They need to push Azerbaijanis to Armenian territory. They need Zangezur corridor. They need territories of Sunni regions and so on. It's their constant propaganda. After a little amount of time, they will have a lot of refugees from Syria. Among these refugees, we can see a lot of militants from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and so on. It's the way always Turkey acts. Right now, they say that they will send all refugees elsewhere, that there is no place for refugees in Turkey. And I expect using refugees with militants inside their ranks as a weapon against Armenia as well, against Georgia as well, against Europe.
That's where I would go. Why do you do that? You're like a walking spoiler alert. Like, I was trying to get us around the Black Sea and over to Europe, and here you are, like the Kool-Aid man, just barging right in.
Well, because I remember 2020, I have a great memory. I remember how during COVID times, Erdogan just opened borders.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, he has this huge swarm. I hate to use that word. It's too dehumanizing. My apologies. He has this huge population of dejected and miserable fighting age males. And that is just, and Erdogan is one of the most unpredictable international politicians that I've ever tried to follow. And we saw the celebrations in Berlin and in Ireland, of all places, and they asked the Syrians there, do you plan on going back now that Assad fell? And they said no. So what do you, how does this bode for the continent of Europe? Like I feel like the fall of Gaddafi was like an appetizer for what we're about to see, especially with the amount of weapons that have been kind of proliferated throughout the world because of Ukraine.
Well, I expect that refugee crisis will be used for conducting not some goals of reaching German or other countries, but I expect use of these refugee masses against Armenia and against Greece, because we should remember that Turkey always saw Greece as a threat, and they have a gray zone on some isles, and Greece is not stable state right now. Turkey state stays like Israel on threats that when it will be a new economical crisis inside Turkey, Turkey will conduct new military operation. Right now, they have success in Syria. They will sure have some successes in on Great Run direction. But talking about Europe, I expect their moves in on Greece direction, because Turks like to cut some Greek throats, as well Balkanians. But right now, thanks to watch policy, Turks have great connection with Belgrade.
They do have a good connection with Belgrade, and that's probably the one thing that may save the Balkans. But Turks deployed soldiers to Kosovo today, so who knows what'll happen now?
Yeah. Like you said,
yeah.
Turkey is so unpredictable, but you can kind of read between the lines with what Erdogan is saying publicly and get an idea of what we were talking about before, which is this notion that Turkey is going to rebuild like an Ottoman Empire or have their own pole within the context of multipolarity, which, by the way, we are clearly not in yet. I wanted to make that very clear. The multipolar world is still very much in its nascency, and that was demonstrated in Syria. But I think that Turkey is trying to triangulate so that in the future, it is not Syria, it's not Russia that holds sway over these regions, but that the Turks themselves have their own pole bridging Europe and the Middle East. So that's what I see happening. And it raises a lot of questions on its own, but we'll get to those in time.
Yeah, if you have time. I'm not optimistic today. We lost meme.
I just feel like, well, Erdogan just said something pretty interesting. He just said there are only two leaders left in the world, me and Putin.
Of course.
I hate this man. I hate Erdogan so much. I hate him. So what do you make of that?
Well, you see, Turkey uses a lot of soft power, like tourism, like its TV shows, to just win hearts of Russian population. And it's like a clever enemy, a clever tool, which is under Britain's control, and Britain sees Russia as a consistent threat since several ages, I suppose. And right now they use Turks as a tool to conduct their soft power policy to win over hearts of our population. Because you should understand, a lot of Russian tourists, just regular people, they like to go to Istanbul. They like to go to local beaches, spend money on tourism, and they don't even think about the idea of Russian money coming to Turkey, to be spent on some Bayraktars on Ukraine or some policy and benefits for jihadists in Syria. They don't want to understand it. They don't care at all. They see great story about Turkey, about its culture. By the way, Turkey has no culture. They have only hammams and TV shows. That's it. No scientists, no knowledge scientists, no cultural projects, nothing. They have only PR projects. And our people, our stupid people, they like to see that PR project. They are bought by Turkish tourist places, tourist sites, and they spend money as they fund jihadism against Russia. They fund Ukrainian unions by going to Turkey.
Yep.
And it's most clever move I saw. Brits use Turkey as just a sweet to for Russian people. And Russian people just like this Swiss without understanding the very nature of the product. And that's why when Erdogan goes public and says Russia is huge, Putin is my friend, people see it and think that, oh, Turkey is our ally. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Erdogan's been using that similar language of multipolarity in a couple of his recent speeches, saying, oh, we can't just be under one dominant world order. But of course, we see how Turkey is used as a tool of the West, and how very much invested the West is in ensuring that Turkey remains a force that projects instability into the region. So, clever enemy, like you said, should we go up to the special military operation and talk about that? I did want to lead off, though, with the meeting between Macron.
I don't want.
Zelensky. You don't want?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't
did
want.
just want to.
I'm too upset with Syria.
Okay, then we won't do Russia has been doing well in Ukraine. So
well, Russia has been doing well in Ukraine, not in Syria.
Yes, not in Syria.
Short brief. We heard this week that special military operation is rolling on, that we are near liberating Kurahovo, and we have successes on other fronts. And there was a claim from Trump that that Russia lost more men than Ukraine. It's a bullshit, because we know how our exchange processes go. We have a much more men from Ukraine than they have our prisoners, and it will should show a perspective. It's about it's about losses after all. Russia lost people. Of course, we lost a lot of people in Ukraine. It's a huge war, and it was 3 years. But when we're talking about Ukraine, its total losses is about 1 million people, 1 million dead and wounded. And it's not about 43,000 or how much Zelensky told. And it's not about a numbers that Trump is saying, because their goal to show their people, their audience, that Western military really helped. That's why it's so small amount of soldiers dead. They want to show to the whole world that it's necessary to continue support of Ukraine, and they constantly tell everybody that Russia is spending more and more sources and losing more and more men. It's just their PR move, I suppose. And it's all about continue military support of Ukraine. That's it. But the reality is on the field is different. Right now, we are near Dnipropetrovsk region. Right now, we are striking military targets on Ukraine daily. We daily use our Shahed drones. It's great that we have such an opportunity. We constantly lose our cruise and ballistic missiles. After all, we used our rationing. I suppose it's not enough to use it one time. We need to strike a metal plant in Western Ukraine to send a warning to Western states. but in any case, we used it. And I see such reports from Western side as a move. They tried to stop us and to made us look much more weaker than we are.
Well, we've seen just a lot of confusing narratives come from the forming Trump administration and Trump himself. Whenever he goes on Truth Social, it's just like a cryptic tweet that has different elements that often contradict each other. Talk about how he wants to buddy
I
up.
hated that tweet. I really don't like that tweet.
It's just strange. I mean, and then of course we had the meeting. I do want to mention that the meeting between Trump, Zelensky, and Macron. The clearest thing that came out of that meeting for me is that Trump absolutely dominates Macron. Did you guys see that handshake? That was like the most assertive and dominant handshake that I think I've ever seen in my life. You should go check out that clip. It's pretty funny, but it's unclear what exactly came out of that meeting. Of course, Trump has signaled different things. The Republicans in Congress are holding up Democrat efforts to try to get more funding to Ukraine before the Trump administration takes office. But then, of course, we see signals from those in the Trump administration that say they want to continue the support once Trump is in office, and that it's just a matter of Trump and the Trump administration itself being the one to unleash those funds and let that flow of weapons continue into Ukraine. So, I did just want to mention that it's crazy times out there. But I know that we're getting towards the end here. Sarah, is there anything else that we wanted to cover with Misha today?
I'm miserable. Don't know.
All right, well, keep your heads up.
I'm just like really aggravated at the people who are kind of gloating like it's a football game, and being like, we beat Assad. I just feel like I just have this horrible. Now, let's all be honest. I've been right about almost 100% of everything, and I have this horrible feeling of dread in like my bones about what's going to happen coming to Europe and the Balkans. Like I just feel like the violence is going to get worse, and it's going to proliferate outward.
Well, Misha, what do you have going on? Any final words?
Well, I want to ask dear Santa for some good 25 years. It will be silent, there will be peace everywhere, and no nuclear war.
You're making a request for Santa on the show?
I'll help you write your letter.
Data Moros.
Yeah.
Father Frost.
I wrote a letter and sent it to the freezer, but all freezers were sent to Syria through woke jihadis.
Freezers beat the TVs. They're filling up the freezer. So
Yeah. In any case, I expect that coming several weeks will be decisive in our conflict in Ukraine, and also it will be decisive for our presence in the Middle East. Because right now we see that a pressure on us is much and much worse. We see pressure on us in Kosovo against Russian foreign policy. We see pressure on us from Trump. We see pressure on us in the Middle East. And I want to know that we have some moves that we did not take before. I want to have a hope in our foreign policies that will show the world that Russia has some moves nobody expects.
All right. Well, I
John?
think that leaves us in a good place. No, it's I got to write my Christmas list too. But we have some exciting content coming up on DD Geopolitics, so stay in the loop there. Be sure to like and share and subscribe.
Super chats. Thank you very much, Golden Sun. Hello from Michigander. Cletus yelling at the chat as always. Thank you, Cletus. And Tony Soprano, what will happen with the Russian S-300 system in Syria?
Not S-300. We had the S-400. And we never actually handed over S-300 to Syria. It was ruled by Russian military operators and military crews. So as I saw a lot of pictures, we just withdrew all the systems to meme base, and I suppose they're situated there. But the future, well, is a little cloudy.
Well, that is our Sunday show. Hopefully, if Misha is not being a diva, he will be back for our Sunday show next week. Thank you.
Yeah.
My heart is broken as well. Maybe this week we'll have something on to having a show about American politics. They're always fun to talk about because at least they're hilarious.
Well.
Have a good week.
All right.
Bye
everybody.
guys.